And it looks like we're ready to jump in. It is the comprehensive recap of Jeen-Yuhs Part 1, the Kanye West documentary. We're here, of course, with Dre the Music Man and Muck of DBTH Radio, available exclusively on Spotify. Gentlemen, what's going on?
We're doing well, man. I think I'm excited to get into this documentary. Yeah, Part 1. It was just a tease.
Yeah, it's cool that this is a 3-part event. I mean, first of all, let's talk about sort of our expectations leading into this. I mean, what was you guys' first reaction when you heard 3-part Kanye Netflix?
Oh, well, for me personally, I was very interested in seeing how he would control this story going forward. I know how Kanye is very much involved in these kinds of things, and I don't know, if anything, the guy's a marketing genius. So I really wanted to see how this documentary was going to unroll. That was my main focus going into it, honestly.
I would say my immediate concern was a lengthy documentary. I'm not a huge Kanye fan. I mean, I like some of his earlier stuff. So I'm afraid it's going to be 12 to 15 hours long by the time we're through this.
Get Back Part 2 kind of thing.
Yeah. Or Kanye like every day.
Yeah. So maybe we should establish that. Like, so you're sort of a casual fan, Muck. Dre, how big of a fan would you say you are of Kanye?
I'm like a huge fan of the first 6 albums.
Okay,
very big fan of the first 6 albums. I know them really well, especially a Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I can't remember that long, lengthy album title, but I've listened to it back and front. I know the lyrics. It's one of those where it was just good timing for hanging out, driving around in the car. It was always on rotation at some point in my life. So that album definitely is near and dear to my heart. The more recent stuff, the Life of Pablo, the Yeezy and stuff like that kind of went over my head. Not exactly my vibe, but there you have it.
Okay, Joe?
Well, I'm not a fan, I would say, but not a hater for sure. I've loved his earlier stuff. I mean, the first album is the College Dropout, I guess. Yeah, I really like that. Didn't follow too much. I listened to it whenever stuff came out. I was aware of what was happening. But I did like the Yeezus. I remember that was like heavy and aggressive, and like a lot of people
very electronic based.
Yeah, so I dug that a lot. And then I also got into, I didn't get into, but like I listened to the Jesus is King. And I thought that was interesting, like, to hear gospel and more organic instruments and not just beats and, and stuff like that. So that was cool. It was all right.
So how'd you go into it as not a Kanye fan? Like, did that sort of affect your perception of the doc, or do you really care, not care?
Well, I'm always on the fence kind of thing, like I'm not a fan of drama. I'm not a fan of the whole, crazy, like, guy who thinks he's a genius and perfect at everything. He is a musical genius. I definitely like that kind of the vibe, and stuff. And I think the marketing, it just depends how it rubs you, like in the sense that, yeah, sure, man, you want to get people to talk about you. You want to do some controversial stuff. The guy's there, like that's for sure, But like, am I a fan of that kind of stuff? Paying, look at me, give me attention. No.
Joe's all about the music.
Seriously, that's it.
I would say that I saw a similar thing here, Joe. Like, what is your intention doing this documentary? What are you really trying to kind of portray? Is it your intention or to kind of show how you made it to the top?
100%. And I mean, this doc starting all the way back before he was famous, which is something I wasn't really expecting. Like, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. But the directors, Cootie and Chike, who I guess worked on this. I guess Cootie filmed most of this. And this was interesting to see. I don't know what you guys thought of it, but starting as a comic, he sort of picked up on Kanye around Chicago and figured maybe we should start a documentary. I mean, it seems like this guy had a really good eye for talent.
Yeah, I mean, it surprised me that at that point in his life, somebody was around that wanted to film him in the first place, and I wonder what kind of chats they had off camera, like what led up to this documentary, what exactly sparked this need to record him, not only at certain times, but like all the time. He's having like a 24-hour a day kind of documentary service. So yeah, that was surprising to me starting off.
Yeah.
And like to think like, back then it was all tapes, and to manage all this stuff and to catalog it and then decide when do you pull the trigger? Like why decide now to release it? Not like before, like when it's all timing, right? But I definitely liked seeing young Kanye. You know, like for me, it's like I like to dig deep. So in the stuff that I know, I'll listen to producers, I'll watch interviews, and listen to how the album was made, behind the scenes, all that stuff. So for me, that was the meat on the bone for me, is to see this guy actually manipulating an Akai and like making the beats, dropping his lines, and then like something that I've done so many times is like trap people in my car. Here, listen to my stuff, right? But in his case, they actually were vibing in the truck, man. And it's crazy that it was all being documented. It's like kind of thank God in a sense, So you get
the music always sounds better when you need a ride home. It's like that's the song right there, as long as we get me to my front step. No, but really, he definitely had it. It was weird for me to see him. I don't know what you guys thought about his appearance, but his appearance and his voice, I noticed too. It seems like a completely different dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost seemed like he was putting a deep voice.
Was that the mouthpiece that was shaping his voice? He had like what was that exactly?
He had his car accident.
It was I think that took place. Whatever they were filming was from before the car accident. He looked like he had a mouth guard in or a retainer of some sort. Even when he was spitting for Scarface, remember he went into the studio and he was demoing his track. He played it and he was spitting. He took out his mouth guard or whatever it was there. He put it on the table. So it's something removable. It really did look like a retainer you would have for braces.
Scarface said it. He's like, dude, what is that? He's like, is that a retainer? He's like, get that off the table. That doesn't belong there. Like, go put that over in like a safe spot.
It's funny too, because I've seen clips of him actually when he's freestyling. I think he must have some sort of dental history, because he actually lost a tooth in the middle of a freestyle on the radio. His tooth literally flew out of his mouth. So I don't know. Yeah, what's the deal with that?
That's crazy.
He's spitting, literally.
Yeah, literally spitting teeth.
It was funny, though, to see him like that with the braids, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I wonder what, because I know myself, seeing myself is like totally cringy. So I wonder if, he loves himself, so I get it. But I mean, like going back and seeing yourself at 19 and having to hustle, it was so interesting seeing even a guy who's already had some success as a producer, right? Couldn't get their attention, by going into their office and rapping, people are working here kind of thing, it's like, it was funny to watch,
thinking about Kanye going back and watching himself at 19. I don't know even if Kanye's ego could handle that, man. Just seeing him with the braids and the purple leather. It looked like a purple leather suit, I don't know. It's got to be a little embarrassing, I think. That's my opinion. Yeah.
It was cool to see him, to also see how he pretty much not put Chicago hip hop on the map, but how much it brought Chicago onto the scene, right? And for me, who has limited knowledge of hip hop and stuff. I mean, I just thought it was, Chicago was already a thing, but Chicago was more of a house thing. And a lot of house.
Well, that's the thing.
Producers. The intensity of him pushing the Chicago way and the Chicago beat, and Chicago is the way that it's going to be moving forward, and this is our music's going to come in, it's going to take over, Kanye is going to do it all the time. He had that message throughout from the moment he started producing beats to the moment he had his final interview on the first part. That was always the message that he was pushing. It's the chai way, the shy way, all the time.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
You guys ever hear of the expression, you got to fake it until you make it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like Kanye is owning that, man. Even from the get-go, you said, Joe, that he wasn't taken seriously as a producer as a rapper because people liked him as a producer. I took a look at the timeline because about 30 minutes into this movie, I'm like, okay, well, he's complaining a lot that he's struggling and grinding to make his name as a rapper. So I'm like, how long is he grinding really? It wasn't even a year. I took a look. It was always 2002 in the
Mythbusters.
You know what I'm saying? So he makes it seem like he's been struggling and how he's down and out because people think of him as just a producer. And you know what? On top of that, wouldn't being a producer and being exposed to all of these A-list rappers only help you make it?
Absolutely.
As far as I'm concerned, it seemed like he was in a perfect position to become a superstar. That's the impression I got after I kind of thought about it for a little while. Although that is not the image they give in the documentary.
That's a really great point. I think it's one of those circumstances where it's like they want to be them. or we want to be them, they want to be us type of thing. It's like, and it's a weird situation. And I do know that it's weird because they show it in the film as if he was always accepted for being a producer, like just from the get-go. But apparently he was just as unaccepted as a producer as he was as a rapper at first, which is interesting. So like I saw somebody make this comment and it made a lot of sense to me. They said, now I actually understand why he has such a big ego and why he like tries to put himself first so much. And I don't know, what do you guys think of that? Because for me, I'm not saying that all his behavior is right, but a lot of it might make more sense knowing the story.
Well, it's definitely impressive to see the amount of drive it takes and like how many no's you can get. You know, you just got to keep going, man, going. And he was right. At the end of the day, he was right. He was an artist. You know, he didn't want to just be a producer behind the scenes. Obviously, that ego has to be in front of the scenes, right? He has to be number one, and he did it.
That's the thing. But it's like, how many no's can you really get at a certain point, and how many times can you be told you're never going to make it without making it, and then sort of trying to take that out on the world? I mean, am I wrong, or does it almost seem like a natural consequence of trying to push someone down?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Given the Kanye I met in the documentary, I didn't really know him outside of his music and his tweets, basically. You know what I mean? So. Right. I kind of met like another part of him in this thing. I just cannot picture anything happening in his life to bring him down. This guy has, and I really do admire that. In a world and in a business where you have to be incredibly resilient, he had that, you know, and he had that in spades, man. The guy, the documentary ends, the part one ends with him getting into a car crash. Even the car crash and having his mouth wired shut didn't shut him up. So
exactly. That's what my dad said. He hates him, but he said he wouldn't even shut up with his mouth wired shut. This is the truth though. No, and I mean, it must be such a challenge though. And, you know, Joe, you mentioned the scenes where he's walking in and he's playing, you know, All Falls Down at Rockefeller Records. What'd you guys think of that? Because I felt uncomfortable just watching it, like almost as if I was in the room type thing.
I would have been totally uncomfortable. So like, oh my God. All the attention's on me because he's rapping right to the girl, right? And she's just like, what's going on, you know?
They almost treated him like a non-entity in a way. Like, and even though I love the song and the song's a hit, it almost made you feel like, maybe this isn't that good just because of the reaction of the people in the room. And, you know, it's almost a strange commentary on people not wanting to give someone shine until they're sort of told to or shown to.
Mm-hmm.
I found even while he was leaving the building, there's kind of like, he didn't get that recognition. It was like, hey, don't forget to get my beat soon, you know?
Exactly.
Like, hey,
make sure you have that for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that one.
It also is a good commentary on how much moving to an established city can make a difference. I mean, it almost seems like the second he hit New York City, it seemed to like put some wind in his sails. Did you guys notice that too?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I later, after watching that part one, I started thinking, I go, is it still the same now? Does it matter so much now geographically where you're situated, given the connectivity we have online? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it matters so much today for a young rapper to move to New York. And not to mention, there are scenes all over the United States now and Canada too. So there is that too. Yeah. New York was a mecca, man. New York mattered for hip hop, you know, and if you wanted if you wanted to breach into mainstream, that was the spot to do it.
Yeah, it's so weird to think that it was only East Coast, West Coast, and not even really coast. It was just LA and New York, and basically, if you weren't there, you didn't exist. I mean, like, Muck, what did you think of that?
I don't know, because we're not even seeing like the West Coast side of this either, right? It's like we're totally focused on East Coast, and as they're coming up, you're just like, Jay-Z's the bomb, Jay-Z's the bomb. So I don't know if it's just like if it had an influence on the way that he was trying to attack the problem or not.
I think it did, because it almost seems like he was dressing very Jay-Z. Like Dre, you mentioned like the big
the tracksuit.
Yeah, the tracksuits and a lot of oversized stuff. It seems like the new hip hop is shrunken, like skinny jeans and stuff. I love how it went from oversized to that.
Yeah.
It's kind of flip-flopping back now. I see new Kanye stuff is kind of loose fitting. You know,
this is true.
We're back to the bagginess. Have you caught those boots he's wearing? It looks like something I wore in elementary school on a snow day. You get those?
No,
those like super huge boots.
He's getting ready for his recess.
I would rock that. Yeah, totally.
I gotta search that up.
Check it out, Joe. I'm telling you.
Now, here's a wild card. I mean, because I know you guys have been tackling a lot of the new music. Your recent episode, you talked a bit about Playboi Carti on DBTH. How do you think a rapper like that, like let's say he walked into Rockefeller Records, Playboi Carti today, do you think he would have been laughed out of the room, or do you think he could have made it?
Ooh,
that's a good question.
Rappers like Playboi Carti, they were put in the spotlight because they proved themselves on SoundCloud before they were signed to a label and before they went more quote unquote mainstream. So I don't think without that kind of that test, that online test that these SoundCloud rappers have to go through to build a following, that's really what brought Playboi Carti to be able to do that style and all the success that he's had. Then I don't think there was a SoundCloud equivalent where you can kind of have a proof of concept before you're signed. I don't think there was that. So I think maybe he would be laughed out. I think that would be the situation back then. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, like today with TikTok, you just have to sing a line and ask a question, and then like a producer sees it and uses your line, and then it's like you're a star,
It's insane to think about, though, because the one main thing that I noticed from watching this is that these dudes, all the hangers-on, all the random people around Kanye that thought they were the main characters, it seemed very clear to me that they thought this is how hip-hop is and this is the way it's going to be. It's never going to change. We're on top. And I just wonder how those people feel today, because they seem so sure that this is the way it's going to be. And it seems like hip-hop is almost a different genre now.
Mm-hmm.
No, totally.
Kanye is also so sure that he's the next big thing, right? So out of all those guys that are shining in the room, and every time he walks in and he sees these huge stars, he's still convinced that he is going to be number one when this is all said and done. And that kind of carries him through every single action that he takes. So it's kind of interesting to see if each one of the artists that they showcase is thinking the same thing, or is it just really like a really heavy drive that Kanye has that's allowing him to kind of cut through the competition.
I think so. I think to be a frontman, to be a rapper or anybody, a singer, like I said, a frontman in a band, you have to have a certain amount of the ego of that. And in hip hop, that's all it is, right? You're always boasting about yourself. You're always talking, whatever. So he just had, I think, a bigger, just a relentless one. He just like no matter what, it didn't make a difference. This is what I want. And it's like I don't know. For me, I see it as a crazy vindication story. Middle finger up to everybody who
totally,
who like dissed you or didn't even give you time of day. I heard somewhere that if you run into him and you rap, he stops and listens to your rap, and then
I've seen it on YouTube.
Yeah, he signed some people like that. So like he's been burned so many times that now that's just what he wanted, I guess, that attention, right? Like give me the 2 minutes, the elevator pitch kind of rap, and then sign me.
Okay, no question for you guys. Maybe you have a little more insight in this than I do. Where do you think Kanye West starts and Ye ends? He obviously has this persona when the cameras are on, and we don't have any evidence of him when the cameras are off. Do you think this is a mask? Do you think this is an act? Like, how much of this is an act? He's obviously an incredibly confident individual. You can see that with his actions, but just the fronting and all of that, just that, that machismo, that ego that he puts up front. You think that's legit, or is that an act?
I think it's legit.
You think it's legit? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
I think it's hard to tell. I think
if it's an act, the guy is he's tapped into some sort of underground consciousness. He's understanding things on a different level. If he's planning that, if he's actually planning all that out, I'd give him even more credit, I think.
Well, I'd agree. I mean, it seems to me, and again, it's so easy to be wrong because we don't know him, but it seems to me that when he's in front of people, in my opinion, he's always putting on an act. I think there's a version of him that nobody knows, and I think that he's just fine-tuned that over the years. And to sort of try to answer your question, where does Ye begin? I think on Late Registration, because I think at that point he'd been vindicated. All of a sudden he's got the budget for the big videos. We get songs like Touch the Sky, and that type of confidence is pretty much unmatched. But it's also like, sorry, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but when you look at sort of the way he ended up becoming and you look at where he started, it kind of makes sense. Because like if you picture that dude in that radio station with billions of dollars,
yep.
I mean, yeah, he's going to go nuts. And he did go nuts. So it's like, it kind of makes sense.
100%, Cassius. I couldn't agree more. You can see the seeds of all of that
right.
That's going to happen, like right there at the beginning, I find, you know. Yeah,
it's such a good like look in, you know, like to you know, an opportunity to see where it came from, you know, and then you see, because we know the answer already, but like to see where it started from, you know.
You can kind of see him every now and then too, just kind of turn off the act a little bit and kind of walk off to the side and talk business for real, you know. So he knows the camera's on in some of the cases, and he's able to slowly kind of distance himself from it. I don't know if you thought the same.
I totally do. No, I think that's a great point. And I mean, it's interesting to see the way he decided to maneuver it. Because let's be honest too, it kind of, I mean, putting yourself in the shoes of the people around him when he wasn't a name, he was a bit corny. You know what I mean? Like it 100%. Almost made sense that he was doubted as a rapper. Because I mean, when you look at Jay-Z and them, he wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I know they called him. They used the term backpack rapper, and admittedly, I had to search it to find out what exactly that meant.
And that came from him, I think. Like him, that term.
Well,
is that right?
Me.
Yeah.
Enlighten me, because I don't know what
Urban Dictionary defines it. I'll read it here. A backpack rapper as a person who raps about real life shit that matters and has experienced. He rarely raps about hoes, having millions, selling immense amount of drugs, murdering random people, etc. So it seems maybe like hip hop of a higher consciousness, if you want to call it, or smart rap, I guess.
Yeah,
yep.
Conscious rap. Yeah, conscious rap.
Yeah, that's what they call it now. I'd say, yeah. But Ye would physically wear backpacks too, so that's part of where it came from, because he was always the weird looking dude with, you know, dudes are sagging their pants, and you see a guy in a polo shirt and a backpack. You know, people were confused.
yeah, that pink polo. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's why I love the early rap. A lot of it came from that, you know, and like, you know, Tribe Called Quest is like one of my favorites, and I love those albums. And like, so that's kind of where I got turned off, when it started to become too much of the same thing, like gangster, cars, money, hoes, and all that stuff, you know. That turned me off. Yeah. So it's like there's a gap in my musical knowledge of hip hop. You know, like I know the earlier stuff, and I know what's going on now with trap and stuff, because it's, you know, it's more popular, I guess, mainstream and stuff. But like, I missed the whole gap because it just sort of rubbed me the wrong way. It was too aggressive, crude. You know, maybe I was just too Canadian for it. Maybe, you know.
Not even Puff Daddy's shiny suits, Joe. You didn't get in on that.
The 90s is like a blur, man. At this point, you know, like
it was all Deftones and Tool.
For me, yeah, but like there was a lot of the Brit, you know, the whole trip hop scene. I was really into that stuff, you know. So, which is totally. You know, a version of, you know, hip hop where it came from, right? So it just became a more electronic version of it, like with different sounds.
Was I the only one that felt like, even in the first 10 minutes of this documentary, that there's this immense loneliness about this guy? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was just my own feelings towards it, but I felt like the guy didn't really have a friend, like a real friend. He spoke and he acted like somebody that couldn't really confide in anybody. Like he's just dependent on himself. And of course, his mother. We should get to talking about Donda too at some point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that's a phenomenal point. I mean, when you really think about it, you know, it was basically just was him and his mom, single mother. You know, he basically was like the father figure in his own life. And, you know, yeah, I think what I got from him, it was just a sense of longing. He didn't seem to dig being the guy that he was. He just, he probably, it seemed like, you know, he'd look around a room. He probably would have chose to be anybody else in that room except for himself. That's what I saw.
That was my sense of it too, Cassius. Yeah.
It's a challenge though. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned Donda. It's crazy now even thinking of her, seeing her, because she's become, with the album and now, you know, part 2, such an enigmatic figure. What are your thoughts on sort of him and his mom? Because for me, the second you see them together, I think it's very crystal clear, like the stark contrast between what you're describing, Dre, and how he is with his mom. Like you can tell that's his true friend.
100%, man. 100%. She was the only person that I saw in that documentary that was able to speak down to him, or to kind of to check him, and you see he stayed silent, like he just listened, and with everybody else he kind of seemed preoccupied with what he was going to say next rather than actually listening to whoever he was addressing at the point, and that excited energy that he was carrying almost the whole documentary just got so subdued, and he seemed like just much more zen and calm, like you said, like you would be around a friend, like you said, Cassius.
She calmed them right down. Like the moment he walked in the door, his energy dropped completely. They sat down, they had an honest conversation. He talked about where his career was going, and she kind of said, "That's great, you're doing great. They don't know what they're doing, keep at it," and just kind of supported him at like 100%. So I think that stems back to, I think when he said he was making beats when he was younger, his mom just kind of got him the gear, and he probably spent most of his time in his room making these beats, trying to aspire to become this producer that he was becoming at the time. So I think he was really lonely, but he used the music to escape it.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, when you look at it, it's making me think now, he didn't even really seem to care about the positive feedback he was getting from other people. Like someone would tell him, "Oh, that's a great beat," or "That's awesome." And he'd just be like, yeah, whatever. He didn't really seem to care about people's opinions regardless,
He doesn't.
But when mom came in.
Yeah, no, he did. You're right. He didn't seem to care about anybody's opinion but his mother's. But I've heard a lot of stories about Kanye West, and that whole thing about getting somebody in the car and showing them the beat or the new track or whatever. Seth Rogen has a hilarious story where he was at a party and Kanye West was at the party, and Kanye comes up to him and says, "Yo, Seth, blah blah blah, I'm a huge fan, etc. I got some new songs I'd love to show you." And Seth was with his wife, and he's like, "Come to my car, and we'll hang out, we'll listen to the songs." Well, apparently 2 hours later, they're still in the car, and he just had the beats, and he was rapping the rest. So you can picture one-on-one in a car, Kanye West rapping for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and, he was very much known to do this. Probably still is. So
he's doing it in the Rockefeller office, though. He really didn't change in a lot of ways.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Wow, man,
that it is so fascinating to see, and I mean, the whole situation with Jay-Z, I found it interesting in the beginning of part 1 too, how they made him such a distant figure. Cause I think people have the idea that they were always like buddy hanging out every day. That's not really how it was.
He just made the beat, right? Like Kanye.
That's it. He made the beat. That was it. And he was one of 20 people making beats. So it's not like he was, top priority.
You see, when he was he was hanging out with the owner or one of the owners of the label. All right. And he was saying, "Yeah, man, I'm going to sign you. And he kept saying, he must have said it like 8 times, and he never got signed. The contract never came, that's what it is, man. It's like very, you put so much energy into it, and you're at the top. I mean, you're already producing beats and songs that are already on the charts and for some of the biggest artists, and you still, with the head of the company, and it still didn't happen, so it's definitely, it's definitely like with that expression, like where they say, people who diss you is like what really drives you even further. He needs that, to drive him even further. That's what probably made him better, right? To just keep going and going and going and going.
Definitely. And you know what, Joe, what you said made me think of something. How the producer is valued less than the rapper, at least as far as the documentary goes. Would you say that today that's kind of flipped on its head? Because it's changing. That would be my impression. Honestly, I feel it's producer rapper now. I feel like it's very much opposite.
I think so. Well, like when you have like 40, right? He's just as popular for Drake, and like everybody wants to be a producer, and everybody is a producer at this point. You just you need a laptop, some software, and you're a produder.
That's right.
I mean, that's a good point.
In the sense of making the beats, but where the actual the producer came from is like to keep the consistency on your album, to get your best performances, to watch the budget of the album while the engineer, you're renting amps, you're renting all kinds of stuff. So that was the producer's role, to oversee the entire project. Whereas then it became the producer in the studio that makes beats and stuff. So that's how it's changed in hip hop. You know, they see it differently in hip hop, whereas in, you know, rock or pop stuff, you know, the producer, like, you know, David Foster, right? He writes everything, and like, man, he'll tell you, yeah, that was perfect, do it again, you know, like that was his line all the time. You know, he would drive people crazy.
No, it's very true though, because when you look at a lot of the new rappers, you know, we mentioned Playboi Carti, we could throw Future in there. They can't do what they do without a producer, because like you can't naturally make that sound in a room. So you're right, Dre. Like it totally changes the sort of order of importance, because, you know, before it was without a rapper, a producer can't do anything. Now it's like the opposite.
Yeah, man. And it's likely going to change again, because at its roots, when hip hop first began, it was all about the DJ. Even the MC was an afterthought. You know, it was very much, he's kind of just shouting things and getting the crowd hyped up, and like, you know, it kind of just like a dancer on stage or something like that. And it was very much about the DJ. You know, you had your Grandmaster Flash, etc. But then, you know, it kind of just, it goes with how people are responding or where people's interests lie, I guess, you know. And this whole thing's got me thinking a lot, because you said accessibility, right, for producers, Joe. Mm-hmm. The fact that with a keyboard and some software you can create. So it's like the producer has taken hold of a lot of the creative power going into a song. You know, when you hold those tools where you're able to manipulate all kinds of sounds and inject, you can make things into what you want sitting at your computer. That's power, man. That's definitely power. Yeah,
we've come a long way.
They're the closest person to the mix, right? I think we talked about this, Joe, you and I, one time. Like they're really, it's just the most intimate person with the music is like the engineer, essentially.
Well, when you think about it, right? Like it's like you're the one getting the sounds, miking the amps, setting up the session for, you know, the mics, all that stuff, and then you're also tracking it. You're backing it up. Then you're involved in the mix. You know, so it's like, yeah, it's true. You're like, as a engineer or like a producer, it's all on you.
This all contributes to Kanye's greatness, man. This guy was doing both. So I guess he was coming at it from an angle where he was able to get the whole picture under control. Pretty cool. Yeah.
So looking forward to part 2, right?
Here it comes, man. Part 2 is very much going to stay at the beginning, first album or two. Really? And then for part 3, there's a big gap. It goes, there's like a 10-year gap where Kanye drifts away from Kuti, and then brings him back around 2020 for more recent footage. So part 3, we're going to get modern Kanye. In part 2, we can expect early Kanye again. And then there's going to be a big gap where we're not going to get any footage at all. Yeah, just FYI.
Okay. I was like thinking, what, did they lose the hard drives? You know, hard drives got lost. So we lost like 15 years.
Yeah, that's a lot of footage to kind of keep around, right? Like, and to as an up and coming like video or videographer, Kuti was starting his own channel, and like he kind of went out on a whim and just said, I'm going to kind of put this all behind, go and believe in Kanye and keep pushing and recording this guy for at least a year or two. And just every time he would be asked about, you know, hey, are you recording for your channel? Are you recording for your channel? He's like, no, I'm doing Kanye right now. Like that, this is the real deal. How much does that help him, do you think? Like having his own personal cameraman around him at like 24/7 in a lot of cases, getting good footage. A lot. That help like kind of elevate his career a little bit, or give him the credibility that he's looking for just a little bit more. I mean, you've got MTV now asking for footage and stuff, so it gets crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I think it legitimizes someone when they're in the room and there's a camera guy with them. You know, I mean, it's even if you don't know who he is, he's got to be doing something. You know.
Yeah.
That's it. It's like a lot of flexing. You know.
No doubt. So, I mean, what are we hoping to see in part 2? Because, like, for me personally, I want to see, I want to see him let it loose. I want to see Ye. We've seen Kanye. We've seen, the dude from Chicago. I want to see Yeezy now.
Yeah. I guess I'm curious about seeing footage, maybe some more behind the scenes stuff, the car accident and what happened there in the hospital, etc. I'm interested to know how his mother handles that whole thing. I kind of want to see him overcome that accident. I want to see his thought process going into it, and just how he climbs that mountain, so to speak.
Amen. Well, I'm very much looking forward to it, guys, and this has been great. Looking forward to part 2.
Part 2, here we come.
Definitely. Thanks, guys. This has been awesome.